In the 2025 NBA playoffs, the basketball world was obsessed with Anthony Edwards. He had the charisma, the flash, the punchlines. He talked like a superstar. He played like one too. And most importantly, he believed it. He believed he was next. After knocking off two legends in LeBron and Steph, the narrative shifted that Ant was the face of the new NBA. He was loud, proud, dancing in the tunnel, feeding into his own hype. But across the bracket, tucked quietly in Oklahoma City, stood his polar opposite in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai did not bring wild declarations. He didn't bring antics. Just a young man who played the game with surgical silence that was slow and deliberate, but deadly. While the world was ready to crown Ant as the next face of the NBA, Shai was already building an empire. And when their worlds finally collided in the Western Conference Finals, it wasn't just a series, it was a clash of ideologies. The human highlight reel versus the silent killer. And over the course of 5 games, not 7, not even 6, but 5 games, Shai didn't just beat Anthony Edwards. Shai became Ant's worst nightmare. No yelling, no trash talk, no headlines. Just a 5-game masterclass in how to let your game speak louder than any mic ever could. Ant brought the storm. He's loud, wild, and impossible to ignore. But Shai brought silence. The kind of silence that makes the loudest man in the room realize that he's not actually in control. Let's go to Game 1 in Oklahoma City. The lights were bright, the cameras were rolling, and the crowd was hyped. All the talk before tip-off was about the Timberwolves, about Anthony Edwards, about how he had taken down LeBron and Luka along with Steph and Jimmy, about how Minnesota's defense was the best in the league, about how Ant had that dog in him. But from the opening tip, something felt different. Shai didn't look like he was showing up for a fight. He looked like he was clocking in for a shift. Where Ant radiated energy, Shai radiated calm. Where Ant shouted instructions, slapped the floor, and hyped his teammates, Shai just jogged to his spots like a man who'd already solved the puzzle in his head. And then the game started, and Shai went to work. By the end of the first quarter, he had already picked apart Minnesota's defensive schemes. Rudy Gobert, the Defensive Player of the Year, couldn't keep up with Shai's timing. His floaters were untouched. His mid-range was automatic. His patience was a weapon. And the Wolves didn't have an answer. Shai finished with 31 points. Not a single heat check. Not a single forced shot. Just pure, efficient damage. Meanwhile, Anthony Edwards, the heart of Minnesota's offense, shot 5 of 13. And it wasn't just that he missed shots. It was the way he missed them. He rushed. He forced the issue. He tried to summon the same magic that worked against Denver, but OKC wasn't Denver. Shai didn't draw at him, didn't flex. He just hit his shots, turned around, and ran back on defense. The Thunder as a whole looked sharper, hungrier, smarter. Chet Holmgren swatted shots. Jalen Williams was excellent on both ends. Lou Dort locked up. And Minnesota, who'd been riding an emotional high, looked gassed, like a team trying to convince itself it still had momentum. The Thunder won 114-88. It wasn't just a win, it was a message. After the Game 1 blowout, the noise started to shift. Suddenly, the media, the same ones who spent a week hyping up Anthony Edwards as the new face of the league, started to hesitate. The same pundits who declared Minnesota the more complete team started asking a question. Wait, is Shai actually the best guard in the NBA? And Ant heard it. He's too competitive not to. Too proud not to. He came into Game 2 with a different kind of fire. You could see it in warm-ups. He was barking, clapping, bouncing on his toes. A man who'd spent 48 hours stewing and replaying every missed shot from Game 1. He was ready for war. But here's the thing about war. You can't win it by yelling. And Shai, he came in with a loaded arsenal. From the very beginning, you could feel that this was going to be his game. Minnesota switched defenders, threw extra length at him. But it didn't matter. Shai dissected every scheme like a scientist in a lab. He read every rotation before it happened, and then he killed him with kindness. Spin move, mid-range pull-up, jab step back, floater. Same cadence, same rhythm, different poison every time. He put up 38 points, 8 assists, shot 57% from the field, and got to the line 15 times, converting 13 of them. No flash, no drama, just full control. And every time Shai scored, you could see it chip away at Ant. You could see the frustration build. The Wolves would make a mini run, and then Shai would come down and calmly hit a 17-footer to stop all their momentum. It was like Shai didn't even hear his own crowd cheering for him. He was too locked in. It was like he didn't even see Ant at all. And that was the most humiliating part, because Ant was trying. He was doing everything. Calling for ISOs, chasing down rebounds, throwing highlight passes, but the more he tried to inject energy into the series, the more Shai sucked it all away. Oklahoma City won again, 118-103, taking a commanding 2-0 series lead. And after the final buzzer, Ant sat at the podium with tight shoulders and short answers. Meanwhile, Shai, he leaned back in his chair, calm as ever. He wasn't gloating, he wasn't even smiling, because Shai doesn't celebrate early. He closes doors quietly. As the series went back to Minnesota for Game 3, the Target Center was absolutely electric. Down 0-2, the Timberwolves were desperate, but none more than Anthony Edwards. The walls were closing in, the headlines had shifted, the praise had turned into pressure. And in Game 3, Ant finally played like a man trying to tear that pressure down with his bare hands. He came out like a cannonball. By the 6-minute mark, Ant already had 11 points, 2 steals, and a highlight dunk in transition. He wasn't just playing better, he was playing louder. Every made shot came with a scream. Every defensive stop came with a clap. He slapped the floor on defense. He pointed at the bench. He looked straight into the camera and yelled, "I'm back." And the Timberwolves followed his energy. The defense tightened. The role players finally started hitting shots. And when the dust settled, Minnesota didn't just win. They obliterated OKC, 143-101, the biggest blowout of the series, a total reversal. Ant had 30 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, and hit 5 threes. He looked like the guy the NBA had been waiting for. Shai didn't look himself, putting up just 14 points on 4 of 13 shooting. But Shai didn't panic. He didn't overreact. He walked in the same way he did in games 1 and 2, like he was late for brunch, not losing by over 40. And that drove Ant crazy. You could see it, even in victory, because he was screaming into the void. He was trying to rattle Shai, to poke the bear, to get something, anything out of him. A glare, a smirk, trash talk, a stare down. Moving to Game 4 in Minnesota, the Wolves had life again. They'd just blown the Thunder off the floor in Game 3. The crowd smelled blood. The series was 2-1, and the national buzz was back. Can Minnesota tie it up? Has Ant figured it out? Is OKC too young to close? While the Thunder maintained the lead for the first 3 quarters, it really looked like Minnesota had a chance to even the series. They were battling. Jaden McDaniels was everywhere. Dante DiVincenzo and Nickeil Alexander-Walker came off the bench shooting like prime Ray Allen. The Timberwolves were red hot, but Anthony Edwards, he was ice cold. 16 points, 5 of 13 from the field, no rhythm, no lift, no fire. And across the court, the silent killer in SGA. From the jump, Shai played like a man who knew the math, like he understood that the only way out of this building was through silence, and so he imposed it. It wasn't flashy, it was surgical. Mid-range jumper, 2 dribbles, free throw, left hand floater, find Jalen Williams in the corner, reset, drive, draw 2, kick. Control the tempo, control the moment, control the crowd. While Ant tried to find a spark, Shai poured water on every ember. By the fourth quarter, Shai had already racked up 35. Jalen Williams had 30 plus of his own. Chet was protecting the rim like a veteran. OKC had taken every punch and never flinched. But still, the Wolves were hanging around. The clock ticked under 4 minutes, and the Thunder were clinging to a narrow lead, 116 to 109. The Timberwolves had clawed their way back, and now it was closing time, where stars either fold or finish. Ant was trying to will his team forward. McDaniels hit a layup. Dante splashed a 3. Nickeil Alexander-Walker knifed into the lane for another bucket. Minnesota kept swinging, refusing to go down. But every time they landed a punch, OKC hit back harder. Shai, calm as ever, drained 2 clutch free throws, and just as Minnesota was regaining hope, J-Dub crushed it with a deep 3, his second dagger in 2 minutes, 123 to 116. Timeout Wolves. Still, the Wolves wouldn't quit. McDaniels scored again. Gobert fought for a putback. The lead was cut to 2. And with just a 9.2 seconds left, it was a 1-possession game. The pressure was suffocating. But Shai, he wasn't rattled. He stepped to the line and iced 3 of 4 free throws down the stretch, pushing the lead back to 3. Minnesota had one last chance. Julius Randle tried to thread a miracle pass, but it was Jalen Williams, the same man who'd been hitting dagger after dagger, who stepped in front and ripped it away. Ball game. 128-126, the Thunder survived. No panic, no flash, just poise, precision, and cold-blooded execution when it mattered most. Shai finished with a playoff career-high 40 points, 10 assists, 9 rebounds. He was everywhere, and yet looked completely unfazed, like he knew all along that Game 3 was noise. And Ant? Shoulders down, eyes on the floor, body language of a man realizing this wasn't a rivalry, it was a lesson, because Shai didn't talk once, didn't flex, didn't taunt. He just walked out of the building with a 3-1 series lead and the quiet understanding that the loudest man in the room is usually the most desperate. Anthony Edwards came in trying to prove he was him. But Shai, he came to remind everyone that he looks like the next face of the NBA after all. By Game 5, the storm had calmed. Not for Oklahoma City, they were still rolling. But for Minnesota, for Ant, you could feel the unraveling. All the bravado from earlier in the series, the flexing, the jawing, the dancing, it was gone. Ant wasn't smiling in pregame warm-ups. He wasn't shouting on the bench. He looked like a man who knew what was coming. And he was right, because Shai walked into Game 5 like a man ready to close a chapter. No warm-up antics, no scowl, just the same slow, deliberate walk to the court. Just the same silent assassin face he'd worn all series. And from the moment the ball tipped, the Thunder made it clear. This one was over before it started. The Wolves scored 9 points in the first quarter. Yeah, you heard that right. It was the fewest points scored in a first quarter by any team all season. They couldn't buy a bucket. Gobert was bricking layups. McDaniels disappeared. And Ant, he was forcing again. Every time he drove, there were 2 bodies in his way. Every time he pulled up, there was a hand in his face. And when he missed, again, Shai would calmly walk it up the floor and break their hearts. Shai didn't even need a 40-piece in Game 5. He dropped 34 on 14 of 25 shooting, threw in 8 assists, and grabbed 7 boards. Every possession felt like a clinic. Every shot was clean. Every read was perfect. And here's the thing, he looked bored. Not in a lazy way, not in a disrespectful way, in a this is just what I do way. Like someone running a perfectly rehearsed routine, like a pilot landing a plane in his sleep, like a closing act with no encore. And Ant, he looked like he knew the show was over. He finished with 19 points on 7 of 18 shooting. He kept trying, kept pushing, but the swagger was gone. The body language said it all. The Thunder won by 30. They ended the series in 5 games, and Shai was without a doubt the Western Conference Finals MVP. After the final buzzer, Ant didn't look angry. He looked exhausted, beaten, not just physically, but emotionally. Because the worst kind of defeat isn't a blowout or a buzzer beater. It's getting systematically taken apart by someone who never even acknowledged your presence. That's what Shai did. He didn't just beat Anthony Edwards. He didn't taunt him. He didn't respond to him. He didn't celebrate in his face. He just erased him. With composure, with calculation, with complete indifference to the noise. That's not just humbling. That's transformation. So what just happened? Let's be clear. Anthony Edwards is a superstar. He's electric. He's magnetic. He's everything the NBA wants from the next potential face. He's powerful, fearless, and fun. And what he did against LeBron and Luka, or against Steph and Jimmy, it was great. He didn't just knock out legends, he did it with highlight dunks, lockdown defense, and personality that filled every arena he walked into. But this series, this was different. This was the first time Ant met someone who didn't care about his noise. Shai didn't flinch, respond, or get rattled by Ant. And in that silence, Ant-Man simply cracked. He came in trying to prove he belonged, trying to dominate the spotlight, trying to force a narrative. But Shai just killed him with consistency, killed him with patience, killed him with a mid-range jumper that felt like it came from another decade. And he did it while barely showing a pulse. Think about that for a second. How many stars in today's NBA can dominate a series, win a series without ever raising their voice? No screaming, no drama, no antics, just 5 games, 31.4 points per game, excellent efficiency, and in complete control. He led the second youngest team ever to make the NBA Finals. This wasn't just about advancing, this was a clear message to the league, because when you think about it, what's more powerful than a guy who can outplay you without even acknowledging you? Shai is different. He doesn't need to sell sneakers. He doesn't need to break the internet. He just needs the ball in his hands and the defense in front of him. And when the series was over and the confetti started falling in Oklahoma City, Shai didn't jump on the scorer's table. He didn't wave goodbye. He didn't tweet. He just shook hands, dapped up his teammates, and walked off the court, eyes forward, because he wasn't finished. This wasn't the destination. This was just another stop. And Ant, he'll be back. He's too good not to be, too driven, too competitive. But now he knows there's a level of stardom that can't be reached by yelling. You've got to earn it, not with words, but with poise, with humility, with silence. Shai didn't need to declare himself the best guard in the league. He showed it, and he did it by humbling the loudest rising star in the NBA. Not through disrespect, but through sheer and utter dominance. Shai didn't just beat Anthony Edwards. He reminded everyone that greatness doesn't need volume. It doesn't need theatrics. Sometimes it just shows up, does the job, and leaves quietly, with the scoreboard doing all the talking. So if this series taught us anything, it's this. You don't need to scream to make noise. And Shai, he just shook the entire NBA in silence. But let us know what you think in the comments. Do you think Shai is the best guard in the league right now? Is this the beginning of a Thunder dynasty? And can Anthony Edwards bounce back and learn from this? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you want more playoff breakdowns, player stories, and moments that define legacies, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you never miss a drop. We'll see you in the next one.